So this is going to be the softer kind of challah enriched bread. So to this one, I'm going to add the flour. So that's 2 cups of flour, and I'm not adding semolina to this one, so I'm going to add a bit more flour. I'm going to be making probably 2 medium-sized loaves, one for our house and one to share with family. And then throw this water in. I'm going to add 3 eggs. And so I don't need to put much olive oil into this one, or perhaps not any, because the eggs have that fat in the yolks. So there's 3 eggs in. I'm going to do the pinch of salt to this one as well. And then I have my nearly sour milk. So using milk as the liquid makes for a softer bread. So like when you think about soft dinner rolls, those frequently have milk in them. And I've tried to look up why it is that milk makes the bread softer. And what I've found is that the internet is full of nonsensical information. Here it is sort of coming together, and you can see that these eggs are nice, like really ran around in the sun chickens. So the egg yolks are nice and yellow. And it's going to give the bread a bit of a more golden color. All right, so this one, you can see here, no problem getting all of that flour into the moisture, but it's not yet forming a ball, so that means I need to add more flour to it. Think about that much before I can turn it out and knead it. Getting more towards what I want to see. So I could add some honey to it. I think I'm not going to add honey to this one. It'll just be slightly sweet because of the lactose in the milk, but it won't really be a sweet, sweet bread. Okay, so we have this really rather messy looking event happening here. So this is probably a good 3/4 of a cup of flour that's just spread out for the kneading, because this is some quite wet dough that I'm putting into it. The other thing that I often do is I just put a little olive oil on my hands for the kneading. Okay. All right. And then the first thing I'm doing is really just picking up the dough and folding the flour in. And because I have the olive oil on my hands, it's not picking up much. And that also adds a little bit extra olive oil and moisture to the bread. Okay. And this one is going to be softer at every stage, but it will be holding together, and you can see already we're getting to the point where we can sort of move into a more normal kneading action where you're pushing and pulling. So you push the bread away with your dominant hand and you pull it back over itself. And that repeated stretching is working up the gluten in the flour. So here we are. This is already looking fairly perfect. All right, so this is our sweeter brioche type dough. And all this needs to do is sit. There's a little bit of wet dough in the bottom here, so I'm just going to add a little flour into this and catch it all up so nothing gets wasted. So speaking of waste, I've heard all kinds of discussion about the idea of throwing away something when you feed your sourdough. You absolutely never need to throw anything away. Just, you can use it in your bread. You can feed your starter less frequently. But the idea that you need to throw away a cup of starter every week is, I mean, plainly nonsensical, because if you think about it, sourdough was developed at a time when we didn't have grocery stores and the way to go buy yeast at the grocery store. So the idea that during those times they would have developed a way of baking bread that involved throwing food out seems very unlikely. Okay, we have a fair amount of flour here on the counter, but there's nothing in here on the counter that can't go into the starter. And you can see, okay, so here's my starter, been bubbling since this morning. So the easiest way to clean up when you're baking bread is to not get it wet. You can actually make glue out of just flour and water, and it's a pretty decent glue. And the last thing you want is a big coating of glue on your counter. So you take a nice flat scraper, which magically appeared from my left. And you just scrape this together and you can just throw that back into your starter. And so my starter was a little more liquid than I wanted before, so this is perfect. Give it a little more food while it's having its nice week-long nap in the fridge. Okay, so here we are. The dough has now doubled in bulk and it is ready to be rolled out. So the first we're going to roll out is the pizza dough. We're preheating the oven to 400 to 450 degrees. We have some tomatoes on the hob, reducing down to be tomato sauce, and we're going to do the crusts. Down goes the dough. I am going to be making a big round pizza object straight away. And this is going to be a pizza, vegetable pizza for the family, so I want it to be pretty big so that I have room for all of the toppings and flavors and everybody gets enough. And we're going to have this with a big salad. So, excited. All right. So now I'm going to take this pizza crust and I'm going to fold it over because I'm going to move it onto the pizza peel. And this surface is very floury, so I'm not going to do it here. I'm just going to dust it off and move it over. Okay. So now here's the crust on the pizza peel. It's folded over in fourths and I'm just going to unfold it here. And get it out to the very edge, and then I'm going to cut up some veggies, put on the tomato sauce, put on the veggies, and it's going to be a pizza. So this is pizza, not yet with cheese on it, but with the veggies and the tomato sauce that we made. Getting ready to go in the oven, so it's getting exciting. It's starting to smell good. It's the pizza. Last thing before it goes in the oven. It's got its cheese, it's got its olive, it's got its spinach. It's like 4 times as tall as it is round. So apparently we're doing mile-high pizza. Wish us luck. We have this area where the pizza was just smushed out. It's already floured. We have the challah-ish, brioche-ish softer dough here, ready to roll. Probably needs a little more flour down because that's, remember that was the softer dough going in. Out it flops. All right. And this one I'm going to turn just a couple times to get a little bit of the gluten worked up into it so that when I shape it, it will have some body to it because we're not rolling it out flat like a pizza. So, we have the dough. We're going to cut the dough into 3 or 4 pieces, depending on our mood. You never know what it's going to be until we see it happen. All right, looks like this one's going to be 4. And then taking each piece individually, you flour it up. And then you're going to roll and stretch it out. All right. There's one. There's number 2. Number 3. And last but never least, number 4. Right. So now we're going to braid them together, and I'm going to try to keep all of this visible, so I know it's kind of dull watching one fixed shot, but that's what you're getting. All right, so to braid 4, start at the left and you go over, under, over, go back to the left, over, under, over, go back to the left, over, under, over, and then you're going to come back this way and tuck the ends in. Then you're going to go back up to this top piece, okay, and then you're just going to braid it back into itself, like so. So then what you have at the end is this. You have a braided bread. So that's going to go onto a cookie sheet with some baking parchment under it, and then it's going to sit on top of the stove while the pizza cooks. The heat from the stove is going to help this rise quickly, so by the time the pizza comes out and the oven cools down a bit to a more bread-like temperature, this is going to be risen and ready to go in. Here we are, 25 minutes later. The pizza is nicely cooked. The richer brioche-style bread is ready to go in the oven. So that's high excitement in our house. We're going to see if it's done. And I'm going to show you how to check whether it's done. And I'm not sure if you can see that from there, so I'm going to pull it out and you're going to knock on it. And you're getting that nice knocking on the door sound. So that means that your bread is done. It can come out. Thank you for joining me for my first effort on bread baking, and next time we're going to do cinnamon rolls if you're good. So I hope you join me again. Thanks a lot.